Okay, so in all the algebra classes, unless, someone went rogue and went off our pace, we tend to be very aligned in our pace. We all did lesson 9, and I understand some of you may not have had algebra yet. It's still going to work. Like I've had kids like every situation. Some where they had me, didn't have me, didn't have algebra yet, or their teacher was like way ahead or way behind. Like it still always works the way that I set up the class, which is in here, the expectation by the end of the day will be to get 80% or higher on the one that I have for my kids today. Because most of the time I have all the math lab kids and there's just like a few that are like spread out. This year it's very spread out. So I mean, still we're gonna go based off of my pace, because usually my pace is everyone else aligns to. So today we use technology to represent data, and we created graphic representations of data to calculate statistics using technology. So yesterday we already learned how to calculate all sorts of different things in Desmos, and the warm-up was supposed to practice that. The warm-up, I know for the one class I was here to teach it for, it took a really long time. You have to know how to use your calculator, and unless you looked it up for your own handheld calculator that you own, then it's going to be Desmos that you have access to. On every quiz, on every test. So if you don't know how to use it, I mean, I report it, you can go back and practice. If you ask for help during your quiz, I know I don't help my students with their calculators during the quiz because no one's going to help you during the state testing. They were not allowed to help you during the state testing. And it could be something really simple that you're forgetting, but I can't help you with it. You have to have in your notes how to navigate that yourself. So if I want to use Desmos to make a box plot, what do I do from this stuff? Yes. Okay, so say my data was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I type it in like that. Okay, commas between them. And anything else? And what do you mean by that? Like, what do it like? Tell me, like. Okay. Yes.
Put D and equals to front.
Okay, put D and equals in front of the 1.
Okay.
And a bracket. Is this a bracket?
No.
Okay, what does a bracket look like? Okay, so on your keyboard somewhere, and it's the one that's like boxy, so like boxy bracket, they'll start with a B. So yeah, say that that's our list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know it's starting to do something because it tells you, hey, I have 5 elements in this list. I have 5 data points in this list. Now, yes, we did practice like recalculating things like mean, median, IQR. Like we practiced that again today, but that was yesterday's goal. Today we're trying to make like a box plot, histogram, and dot plot. So how do I make it show me a box plot of this data? Just type it. Okay, what do you mean by do the functions? What do I press? Like
Click them.
okay. Do I see it yet?
No, go ask.
Okay. So it's a visualization. Okay, and it's all the 3 that we covered. So a box plot, click on it, and yes, you could also type it out on your keyboard, but normally there's a space in between. In order for it to think, it has to be all one word, and you have to have a parenthesis there. And then it actually gives you a spot where you could type in the data, but we already did that in a different cell. So if I called my data this, what do I need to put here? Okay, good. And then you can start seeing something going on here. If you can't, because maybe the numbers are too big, so like, let's add a 0 to the end of each number. Then that's where you might have to like zoom out. But like you should see it based off of the x-axis, like usually in every single visual representation we've done so far, there's an x-axis, a number line. So you might have to scroll out. So pay attention to your maximum and minimums for that so that you can make sure you're seeing the whole picture. Sometimes it leaves off a number, so that's why I really need you to zoom out. Because say we had a number that's way bigger than the rest of the data, like 100. I don't see that on here, do I? Everyone's looking at it? Okay. 100 on my number line is over here. Like it's represented with a little dot above it. That's because in Desmos, the automatic settings is that it excludes outliers. Unless I told you to do that on your quiz or test, I don't necessarily want you excluding them. I want you to uncheck this box so that it connects. And we can actually sketch that onto your test or what have you. Usually it's really easy to see when kids don't know how to do something and they're just trying to sketch it from Desmos. You need to know that like they should be in the correct spot for like the minimum, the Q1, the median, the Q3, and the maximum. So like it's still important that we went over how to do it by hand. But like, yes, you can use Desmos to help you with certain aspects. All right. So questions on how to make the visual representations with Desmos. Okay. What do I do if I'm trying to make a histogram and maybe I'm trying to match it up to something on my test and it doesn't look anything like what's on my test? What if it just looks like that? What do you? Just go ahead and add table 5 for that. Okay, so let me repeat my question. What do I do if it looks nothing like what's on my test? Yes?
Comma then the numbers, change the width.
Okay, put a comma and a number to change the width of the histogram. Automatically, it's going to do a width of 1, and we never really see an interval of 1 for our histograms. So if this was my data, what type of intervals would you suggest? Okay, so that's what it looks like when it's 2. Here's what it looks like when it's 5. So it's starting to get like thicker.
15.
15. They should touch. I mean, the only times they don't touch is if there's a gap, like there's a big gap from like 50 to 100. But like when I score the tests, I give you points, even you could be completely wrong, but I still give you points if your bars are touching. So the bars have to touch, they have to be even intervals. I mean, Desmos will always give you even intervals. What else do they give you? Yeah. Yes, questions, comments? So yeah, there's that. You can adjust it like that. I would hit this alignment to the left so that it looks more like what you'll actually see on your tests. And then of course the dot plot is the easiest, but we can show you that. But it's literally that quick to show you when you already have the data. And I didn't put like any of the same number, but let's see what happens when I put like another 10. Like they start showing you from your data. Okay. Another thing we tried to touch on today, but I don't think it went that well, is like what happens when you add, subtract, or change a data value. You can calculate them all pretty fast now. Like you could do both data sets and compare like what happens if I change this 100 to a 1. Like, does that increase or decrease my mean? Like, you could start comparing that. But we're gonna get to a point where a lot of these questions can be answered without you having to do the math. And then you can just do the math to like check your answer. But that would save you a lot of time on the test. So if you're not clear now what the difference is between a measure of center and a measure of variability, let's just recap that. So just started doing this yesterday. So this would normally have been something we already mastered and covered. What's an example of a measure of center? The mean. That tells me a typical value in my data set. So if mean is also average, then yeah, mean is a measure of center. And then yes, also the median. Median is literally the center. Variability, what's a measure of variability? What does variability tell me about a data set? Yes. Yeah. Okay, IQR is a measure of variability. It tells me how spread out the middle 50% of my data is. IQR does. So variability is how spread out your data is. The variability would be how spread out your data is. Center would be like a typical value. That's it. So what else tells me how spread out my data is? Okay. Mad, good. And then there's one more that we learned how to calculate. Good, standard deviation. That one is the only one I did not show you how to also calculate by hand, and it's because you should just use the calculator. Even with the math, like you should probably just only use the calculator now, moving forward. The rest are doable by hand, but even like a lot of my students are safe. So again, showed you how to use graphing technology, start using that to at the very least check your work. Okay, so those of you that already listened to my long spiel about the math lab syllabus and stuff, like you listened to me talk about every section, you can just get started on this practice, which is in Schoology. Your goal is to get 80%. Those of you that have not listened to the spiel, you are going to listen to it today, and I'm gonna have you guys like sit at table 3 so that I'm not like across the room. Were you here when I talked about each part of this? I don't think so. Were you? I was here.
You were here.
Yours, mine.
No, I'll give you.
The very first day that we all started.
Oh, yeah. I was.
When were you at it? Don't mind me if you're lying.
Okay.
Okay, so if you already listened to it, start your. Okay, so the dot plot represents the distribution of satisfaction ratings for the landscaping company on a scale of 1 to 10. 25 customers were surveyed. On average, what was the satisfaction rating of the landscaping company? It says like using the mean and using the median because both represent like a typical satisfaction rating, like a typical value in the data set. So I know it seems weird because average is the mean, but sometimes we prefer the median over the mean, and that will be something we talk about in a different lesson. But using graphing technology, because that would be the fastest. What would I start typing first in order to put my data in here? Okay, good. And then from a dot plot, you just have to, if it has this many dots on it, make sure you're putting that many fives. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fives. Um, 11 eights. 4 nines. and 2/10. And then always double check, like it did say that we had 25 customers, and that makes sense because it says 25 element list, so that's a good sign. How do I make it tell me what the mean is? Table 4, can you tell me? How do I make it tell me what the mean is? Okay, good, because that's what we called the data set. So here is what the mean is. It should represent what your data is centered around and a typical value in there. And then same process, except now we're going to click on the median. So if you're not getting this from your graphing calculator, you probably missed a data point. Maybe you made this a parentheses instead, because then it wouldn't tell you anything if you did that. So it's all about how to navigate the calculator for these few lessons. All right, any other questions so far?